Good morning, everyone. My name is Livania Chiantoery, and this is my friend.
I'm Olvirini Pananggung.
And today we will discuss about culture shock in Indonesia. But before we discuss further about the culture shock in Indonesia, first we must know about what the culture shock is. So, what is the culture shock? Culture shock refers to feelings of uncertainty, confusion, and anxiety that people may experience when moving to a new country or experiencing a new culture or surroundings. This cultural adjustment is normal and is the result of being in an unfamiliar environment. Culture shock can occur when people move to another city or country, such as when retiring abroad. Culture shock can also occur when people go on vacation, travel in retirement or for business, or study abroad to school. For example, international students studying abroad for a semester in other country may experience a cultural adjustment due to an unfamiliarity with the weather, local custom, language, food, and values. Although the timing of each person's adjustment process can be different, there are specific phases that most people go through before they adjust to their new environment. Culture shock can be quite stressful and lead to anxiety. However, it's possible to overcome it and grow as a result. So now I ask this question to people who are at Quora, and here is the answer. And I ask my friend to read their question. The first question is, what culture shock do foreign people get when they stay in Indonesia?
Okay, according to Sam Forward, he said, I live in Indonesia, Jakarta and Bali for nearly 3 years and have an Indonesian partner. The friend lines of pretty much everyone. Coming from the UK, I'm used to not speaking with strangers unless there's some sort of emergency or we are forced together for an extended period of time. Living in Indonesia and being lucky enough to learn Indonesian, I was very surprised at first by the number of people that are happy talking to strangers, not just bule, but or Westerners like me who are a novelty in smaller towns and villagers, but to everyone. When traveling with Indonesian friends through Java, the first stop for food at warung will be to strike up a conversation with whoever else is sitting there. I still find it disconcerting, but I've learned to be much more open and friendly to strangers since living in Indonesia. And next, according to Eleanor Fong, he said, I went to Surabaya and Bali at two different times. I had different culture shock at the two places in Malang. In Malang, bathing in the river in the countryside or rural areas, my friend from Surabaya explained to me that Javanese living outside of Surabaya tend to be conservative, that is, pornography isn't welcome. However, I found people bathing in the river when we were in the area around Malang. I was shocked. I saw women in brass and sarong. I was very shocked. I asked my friend, why do women bathe in the river? Not to mention in their brass and sarongs, aren't they conservative? He replied, it's just like that. Due to his limited spoken English, he couldn't explain more. I figured that bathing in the river is a way of life, whereas pornography isn't. Next, in Denpasar, motorists riding on the sidewalk or footpath, the same friend mentioned above started to ride on the footpath beside the road to get ahead of traffic. I was on moped and it freaked me out to do so. I was afraid of injuring any pedestrians. However, as I rode along, I realized that the pedestrians were not walking on the footpath. There were almost no pedestrians. That being said, I rode with my heart in my mouth. Riding for the distance is illegal, and unheard of in Singapore.
So, and then the next question is, what was your biggest culture shock going to Indonesia?
According to Lukman Luke, he said, I visited Medan to attend a wedding of one of my relatives. I love the hospitality provided by my relative over there. Whenever I was on the road, I always see plastic bottles filled with green or yellow fluid. At first, I thought that it might be some liquid detergent, but I suspected that it wasn't because it was always sold on the side of the road. And why would there be so many liquid detergent on sale at weird location? I turned out to be it turned out to be petrol after I asked one of my relatives. They said that it was not common to find petrol stations as the roads are always congested. Furthermore, the petrol stations work differently here. There will be someone filling up for you and you do not have to leave your seat. This was one of the bizarre experiences I encountered.
And the next question about what are some things that foreigners find weird or illogical in Indonesia?
Okay, according to Stephanie, she said, the first time I visited Indonesia, I was on a business trip to Jakarta as part of a team of 6 people, the other 5 being men. When we arrived at the fancy hotel we were staying at, the very pleasant hijab wearing young woman who checked me in told me she was putting me in a room on the ladies' floor of the hotel. I asked her if that meant I had to act like a lady and she said no, but no male guests were allowed on that floor. Was that okay with me? I said okay. So I went up to my room on the ladies' floor, which was extremely nice, and in a couple of minutes there was a rap on my door. The female butler was knocking to announce that a bellman had arrived with my bag. She escorted him into my room, stood over him as he set the bag down for me, and then begged him out of the room and over to the freight elevator. A female staff member was on duty to make sure no male person got off any of the elevator. The butler was female, and if I had ordered room service, it would have been brought by a female server, or else a male server being escorted just as the bellman had been. On my first morning in Jakarta, taking a shower, I had put shampoo in my hair and was adjusting the temperature of the water when one of the handles cold I think come off in my hand. I had shampoo dripping down my face and I couldn't see clearly, but I desperately tried to screw the handle back on until somehow finally I succeeded. In my brief panic, I took comfort in the fact that if I had to run soppy, wet and screaming for help into the corridor, at least I would be on the ladies' floor. I get this gender segregation was the hotel's way of protecting female guests, and their intentions were all good. But I confess that it seemed a little bit over the top to me.
So the last question is, what cultural shock you experienced when living in Indonesia?
Okay, according to Gon Hong Tet, he said, I first stepped foot in Indonesia in August 2005. It was the city of Medan, which was a mere 30 minutes flight from Malaysia. I'd say one of first culture shock I encountered was the incessant honking on the road. Driver couldn't seem to drive without honking every other second, usually for no real good reason. It seemed like you just got to honk because everyone else was doing it. In Malaysia, drivers honk much more sparingly, and you'd better have a good reason to honk. Otherwise, people can get really offended. The photos I've never seen photos that hook in my life. Some of them were so hook, they're more like scene colors than photos, and they are usually left unfilled for months on end. Worse was when it was rainy and the holes were filled with water, making them near invisible. I found out why SUV like Toyota Kijang Innova are the most popular cars in Medan. Surviving those battles, I was also surprised at how poorly lit the streets were at night. Mind you, this was a big city. And then smoking. People smoke everywhere. In air-conditioned malls and restaurants, people smoke freely. In universities, lecturers smoke freely in front of students, with students, and even in front of large formal gathering. In Malaysia, all school, university, and government premises are non-smoking zones. Smokers usually secretly smoke in toilets and back alleys. Almost every household has a generator. The frequent blackouts were quite a shocker. At one point, sometimes in 2007, the situation got so bad that half of most day was without electricity. Things are much better now, of course.
So guys, the conclusion is every people of course will experience culture shock when moving to a place that has not been visited before. Culture shock occurs when an individual leaves the comfort of their home and unfamiliar surroundings and moves to an unfamiliar environment. Adjustment period can be fairly intense, particularly if the two locations are completely different, such as going from a small rural area to a large metropolis or moving to another country. People can also experience culture shock when moving from one place to another within the same country. Typically, no single event causes culture shock, nor does it occur suddenly or without reason. Instead, it gradually builds from a series of incidents, and culture shock can be difficult to identify while struggling with it. That's all from us. Thank you so much to my friend Winnie
Thank you.
for your helping me to read the answer from other people at Quora, and have a nice day. Goodbye.